Did you know that Leonardo da Vinci played a role in the early tragic history of the parachute? Yes, the creator of the Mona Lisa designed the first concept for something that would go on to change the course of human history. Stay until the end of the video to find out everything that happened. Now, imagine a man wearing an innovative suit of his own creation, climbing to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Surrounded by a curious crowd, he smiles confidently. Moments later, he leaps, believing his invention will allow him to float safely to the ground. But something goes terribly wrong. What happens next will shock you. Since ancient times, humans have dreamed of flight. Looking at birds soaring through the skies, many have wondered, what if we could do that too? But the dream of flight wasn't just about the desire for freedom in the sky, it was about survival. How could we, if we fell from great heights, avoid certain death? The story of the parachute is as much about overcoming human fear as it is about conquering gravity, which for centuries seemed unbeatable. Let's go back to the late 1400s, a time of great discoveries and intellectual revolutions. This was the height of the Renaissance, when one of history's greatest geniuses, Leonardo da Vinci, began to seriously consider the concept of flight. Among his many sketches of flying machines and anatomical studies, one design stands out: a parachute made of wood and fabric, shaped like a pyramid. For its time, this was a completely radical idea. Da Vinci believed that a man using his parachute could jump from any height and land safely. While Da Vinci's ideas were groundbreaking, they didn't see practical application in his lifetime. But the seed for the parachute was planted. The dream of flight didn't die with Da Vinci. Fast forward to the 1600s, when the concept of a controlled descent was still a complete mystery. Enter Fausto Verancio, a Croatian inventor who was heavily influenced by Da Vinci's ideas. Inspired by these designs, Verancio decided to create his own parachute. His project, named Homo Volans, or Flying Man, had the same core idea: to make a person descend safely from a great height. In 1617, Verancio climbed a tower in Venice, Italy, and jumped. To the astonishment of the crowd, Verancio landed safely. His jump didn't just prove the concept of the parachute, it was a clear signal that the dream of flight could one day be more than fantasy. However, as the centuries passed, the drive for flight continued to develop, and the 18th century would mark the next major step. Enter Louis-Sébastien Lenormand, a Frenchman who not only became a key figure in parachuting history, but also coined the term parachute. In 1783, Lenormand made history by performing the first recorded jump from a great height using a parachute. His first jump was from a tree, a modest height, but still a feat that caused great excitement. This demonstration showed the public that a person could descend safely from the air, leading to a surge of interest in parachutes. But even though Lenormand had proven the parachute's potential, these devices were still not practical for wider use. The designs were bulky, heavy, and difficult to use, making them far from ideal for real-world applications. However, despite Lenormand's success, parachutes were still primitive, bulky, hard to use, and impractical for emergency situations. That's when André-Jacques Garnerin entered the picture. In 1797, Garnerin became the first person to jump from a hot air balloon using a parachute. His accomplishment not only captivated the public, but it also proved that parachutes could be used practically, not just for demonstrations but as life-saving tools. Garnerin's parachute was different from its predecessors, with a cylindrical shape and a more aerodynamic canopy. His balloon jump marked a turning point for air safety, demonstrating that parachutes could be used in real emergencies, particularly for aviators. As the 19th century progressed, parachutes slowly continued to evolve, but it wasn't until the early 1900s that we started seeing practical applications for them in the aviation field. The idea of a parachute worn as a suit, a wearable parachute, was one that captured the imagination of many. Enter Franz Reichelt, a tailor from Paris who was obsessed with creating such a device. He believed that the future of flight depended not just on airplanes, but on providing a safety net for those who dared to fly. His invention was intended to be worn as a suit, so that anyone, even without any special training, could use it in case of an emergency. Reichelt's idea was a bold one, and while it captivated many, it was far from perfect. His parachute suit was untested, and many were skeptical about its effectiveness. However, Reichelt was convinced it would work. In February of 1912, he decided to test his invention in the most dramatic way possible. He climbed to the top of the Eiffel Tower, the tallest structure in the world at the time, and prepared to leap off. A crowd gathered to watch the daring demonstration, and many were curious to see whether his parachute suit would work. With all eyes on him, Reichelt leaped from the tower. Tragically, the parachute failed to deploy correctly, and he plummeted to the ground below. His death was captured on film, and this footage would become a chilling reminder of the risks involved in pushing the limits of innovation. Reichelt's tragic end didn't stop the pursuit of safer, more reliable parachutes. In fact, his death highlighted the importance of thorough testing and development before any invention could be trusted with human lives. The lesson was clear. While daring innovation is important, it must be approached with caution and rigorous testing to avoid disastrous consequences. Despite his failure, Reichelt's story didn't mark the end of the parachute's evolution. In fact, his tragic death sparked a renewed interest in making parachutes safer and more efficient. By the mid-20th century, parachutes were becoming an integral part of aviation safety. They were no longer seen just as curiosities or experiments, but as life-saving devices that could save lives in emergency situations. Airplanes, pilots, and skydivers alike began to rely on parachutes in ways that had once been unimaginable. Today, parachutes are used in a wide variety of fields, from military operations to extreme sports, and even for recreational skydiving. The technology has evolved to the point where parachutes are now light, efficient, and capable of saving lives in some of the most dangerous situations. What began as a far-fetched dream has become a reliable and essential part of modern life. The tragic story of Franz Reichelt serves as a reminder that many inventions come with great risk. But it is through these bold, often dangerous attempts that humanity learns, grows, and ultimately prevails. And speaking of revolutionary inventions, have you ever wondered how the first telephone was created? Check out our previous video to learn about the drama and innovation behind Alexander Graham Bell's transformative creation.